Hello, hello. Welcome to our daily episode of The Forge, where we take a deeper look at a topic and we develop tools for personal growth that you can use and apply. Daisy May, good to see you. I'm so excited that you're here. I never know who's out there on these members only streams unless I see them in the chat or if they come up on panel. So I'm going to imagine you as my audience today. A very honored and worthy audience. Thank you for being here. I'm very excited about this episode because it ties together so many things and it has like direct relevance to a lot of things that have been happening in personal life, work, here on the panel, not only with me, with other people. I'm hearing it through the stories people tell everywhere. So I think this is a good topic to do. And since it is Panelverse related, emotional avoidance is all about keeping the peace, like protecting emotion at the expense of truth, reality, problem solving, anything that might disrupt that harmony. And you would think at first glance, when you look at the Panelverse, where is this trying to keep the peace? Where is this dynamic at work anywhere? But if you look closely, because we come from all over, remember, so there's plenty of us here from these cultures, as much as is not. That may be some of the roots of some of the clashes here to begin with. But if you look closely, there are these little groups, these little clusters of people within the Panelverse that form little in-groups, out-groups. You're in that little network or you're not. And the people, some of these, not all, but some, function very much like one of these emotional avoidant cultures. They protect each other's experience here more than they seek truth, understanding, clarification, etc. So, because this is Panelverse week, these tools are going to be generally applicable to your life, but specifically for the Panelverse where you think they might not be as necessary, just look a little more closely. All right. First, I'm going to recap a little bit about what I talked about this morning, the background for this, what emotional avoidance is, what an emotionally avoidant culture is. Bottom line, it's not about keeping the peace. It's about hiding from discomfort. They don't, what I think this is just what me looking at it kind of casually. What I think it is, what it seems like to me, is at an early age, a developmental age, they did not have the experience of being comfortable with their emotions, of having them, processing them, sitting with them, because one of the messages that these cultures give is that certain emotions are wrong or bad and you shouldn't be having them, or they're going to hurt other people, or they're going to disrupt the peace, etc. So if you're not allowed to fully feel the range of your emotions as you're developing, you don't develop a comfort with the emotions when they happen and an ability to like know what to do with them and make those kind of choices and decide. So in a way, it's kind of an emotional stuntedness. Everybody's like developed to a certain stage of emotional comfort, but not beyond that stage. And so everybody kind of knows to keep everybody at the stage they're comfortable with. And people like me from other cultures where we were allowed to just have whatever emotion, we can handle all the emotions that you're trying to avoid. They're not barriers of us. They don't make us uncomfortable. We've had a lifetime of experience of feeling them and experiencing them, and so they're not as threatening to us. So it creates this mismatch, this disconnect between this type of culture, or people doing it this way, or at this level of comfort, versus the rest of us who can function at a different level of comfort. These are the traits of an avoidant culture, real quick. It's nice, everything's nice on the surface, nice and polite, but conflict can easily disrupt all of that. It's not made for conflict. So when conflict happens, it doesn't know what to do. It's not resilient. But as long as there's no conflict, it can keep up the nice. Anything direct is experienced as aggression, as escalation, as initiating a conflict instead of addressing a conflict. Problems get soothed, redirected, um, diminished instead of resolved. It's not a problem solving culture. It's a problem, how do we make this go away so we can get the peace back culture. But the problem itself is not actually solved or resolved. This is important, especially for autistic people. The communication style in one of these cultures is hints, nonverbal, sometimes a look, a tone. Tone plays a big role here. Silence, energy. It's a very nonverbal culture because they're trying to subtly navigate and indicate what level of emotion. And people that function within one of these cultures know how to all do this with each other. People from the outside like me have no idea what they're going off of. The number one goal is harmony. Everybody getting along or pretending to get along. It's not truth. It's not red. They're not trying to understand things or the world. They're trying to get through life with minimal conflict. And the number one rule in this culture is do not make anyone uncomfortable. Even when that person's being inappropriate, don't make them uncomfortable about it. So don't too directly call out somebody's bad behavior because that's going to make them uncomfortable. That takes priority over direct communication. And in this kind of culture, adult to adult communication, the kind I do, let's talk, let's work it out, we can sit with the emotions if we have to, is seen as confrontational. It's not seen as a chance to understand the issue and come to a solution. It's seen as a confrontation. You're going to confront the person in this conversation. Honesty becomes threatening, and any attempt to set a boundary or maintain a standard gets treated as a personal attack. It's personalized. So these are all signs that you may be dealing with somebody from one of these cultures. They named the Pacific Northwest, the Upper Midwest. I had a roommate that was from Minnesota, and he told me about Minnesota Nice, and he said it was exactly the same as Seattle culture. So he could fit right in because it was the same culture he had come from. Canada, New England, and many corporate environments, which I think is what I was running at work. I was running into a combination of Pacific Northwest and maybe a little bit of culture, but I think more regional than corporate. And these cultures value politeness and emotional containment. They want that emotion managed, contained. They want to be able to assure people it's not going to be disruptive. It's not going to disrupt the harmony. They communicate indirectly through implication. That's why a lot of times, even on here, something will happen and everybody will start like knowing what to do and coordinating, but they're not doing it. They're not talking about it. They're just kind of all getting on the same page. And sometimes you'll see me like, how are they doing it? How does everybody know to coordinate like that? Because they know how to read these subtle cues, because that's the language that this culture uses. And they expect people to just know the subtext, to be able to kind of just read what's going on. It's not a direct, people like me that need it spelled out and pointed out and mapped out, it doesn't do that. And they avoid open conflict at all cost. Anybody that's going to do anything that's perceived as escalating into conflict is the enemy, because that is the one thing they are trying to avoid. And they're called high context, indirect cultures, meaning the people that come into them have to have all this background conditioning, socialization, skill set, know-how, etc. To understand, to like make meaning of all the little cues that people are using in this culture. Low context cultures and direct cultures, they give an example: New York City, Philly, South Jersey, much of the South. I could tell you Louisiana culture for sure, Vegas culture, many immigrant communities, and most autistic communication is low context. And that means anybody can come into it and pick up and understand, because it's you don't have to have a lot of background training in a low context culture. They seek clarity. They say what they mean. They're direct. If they say something, they mean it. It's not a hidden code to try to like communicate some other indirect thing. They prefer truth over vibes. How many times have you heard me say, I don't care about your emotions? I do not care about your feelings. I need to be able to just say something. I can't predict and control what feeling you have about it. That's not a priority of mine or a concern. I want to have a conversation about reality, about facts, about what's happening. I don't care with the emotions. They can do whatever they want. My emotions can do whatever they want. I'll be fine. I know what to do with them. Adults can manage their emotions. They don't need to have an entire culture babysit that for them. If somebody is uncomfortable or offended or upset, if you're an adult, a psychologically matured adult, that is fine. It's perfectly okay to be that. An adult can handle being uncomfortable. They can handle being upset. There's nothing they need to be protected from. And these cultures prefer to resolve problems out loud, verbally. Sometimes in public, I will fight with anybody in public. I don't care who's around. If we're in the middle of some kind of conflict and I'm trying to problem solve, I'm going to do it verbally. I don't care who's watching or who's around. That's my style. That's the way I know how to do things. That's the way we grew up. We were kind of always, fights or arguments or disagreements could break out at any second over anything between anybody, and people were having all kind of emotions all day long and nobody cared. It wasn't a big deal to have emotions. And if somebody was having an emotion, you just let them have the emotion. I come from a culture where you let the baby cry. We let the baby cry. We don't soothe the baby every time they cry. You'll go check and you'll see if it's okay. Does it need anything? But you don't coddle it to keep it from crying. You let it have the emotion. And that's what they did with us. There's even like little Cajun words like to cry, boudet means to cry. And if somebody's upset or throwing a fit, oh, let them boudet. Oh, they're boudetting. Just let them boudet. Or he's out there boudetting. And so they just kind of name the emotion, give the information, and let the person handle it. Like, so we learned that as kids. High context people protect feelings. Low context people protect information. That is what I'm obsessed with on this channel. And as somebody with a personal interest in epistemology through my philosophy training, I am concerned with the purity and accuracy of the information. That's why I'm always saying, how do you know? Let's look that up. Let's see what Wikipedia said. Do you have a source for that? Is there a link? Oh, you saw it on YouTube. You watched the video. Is there something else I can look at besides just that, etc.? Because I'm so concerned with the information, the truth value. Other people, both on YouTube and in real life, are more concerned with protecting feelings. If they see someone getting upset, they'll start to circle. They'll white knight. The person trying to have to me, a normal direct conversation is suddenly the enemy, suddenly the threat. There's people that are going to start trying to explain and downplay and dismiss. We saw an example of that in the chat this morning. And when the transcript comes out, I want to run the experiment of running it through the AI and kind of getting an AI take on that dynamic, because I was trying to address comments and I was being interpreted as arguing or trying to start a fight or start conflict. And me and this person kind of have a pattern of that in any way. So I think everything was just seen with suspicion. But I went through step by step and I tried to show this is what I was saying here. I was trying to answer the question. I was trying to understand it. It was very information based, and the person was taking it as emotion. And I think what's happening is I'm not saying the emotions are not there. They're just not relevant to me, so I don't pay attention to them. I'm focused. If a person's getting emotional with me, I'm tuning into the words. And if I'm trying to communicate, I'm putting all of my effort into my words. And if my emotions happen to be doing something, they're doing that on their own because my focus is the words. And I think other people are focusing on the words. But I think people, what's happening is, and we saw it this morning too, now that I think about it, with the panelists. People are responding to an emotional tone. Like it takes their focus from the words to, oh God, the emotions are doing something here. And I'm ignoring that part of it. And I think I'm just having a verbal conversation, and the emotions are like a side product that's not really that important. But for people that navigate by emotion, they start to lock in, they start to shift from the verbal to the emotional. And then they start to shape their conversation to manage the emotion. And I still think we're verbally talking and it doesn't make sense and the logic breaks down because they're shifted to a different mode. And then I freak out. And I think they're playing some kind of game because they're shifting the conversation around and it's losing that linearity. And it feels manipulated. Because in a way it is a little bit. But I think it's because people can either stay with the logic and let the emotion do its thing, like probably these low context cultures that value information and truth over emotion, or they're shifting to like their alert went off and they're shifting to this emotional protection mode. And I still think they're in logic mode because I don't have that shift that they have. I'm not from that culture. And I think that's what is behind some of these breakdowns. And I'd like to keep an eye on that and kind of study those in this light. All right. Here's where we bring in the neurodivergent piece. We're going to look at some tools, and then I'm going to drop the link. Let me maybe... Oh, there are no comments. Okay. These are some broadly because any individual autistic or neurodivergent person can have any combination of communication styles. So this is just some broad trends they notice in autistic and neurodivergent communication. It tends to be more direct than not. We have a reputation for bluntness because we don't have like the social softness that neurotypicals know how to do. It can often be literal, which is information-based, fact-based. I'm very concrete about things. I like to tie things down to the literal. What are we talking about? What are the words saying? What are the facts? What are the things we can all see and touch and observe together in this situation? It tends to be honest. I've done a lot of autism groups and I've met a lot of autistic people and seen that group dynamic. And one thing that we all notice pretty early, we notice a couple of things when we get together. We tend to be very honest because lying takes like a double track processing. You have to remember the lie and then the version to cover the lie. And with autistic people, a lot of us just have that one track. And when we get together, we're just able to fire off that track with each other. And so communication gets very fluid and accelerated. And the other thing we notice is there's not really a lot of hierarchy. We're sigmas. So we don't, a lot of times when neurotypicals get together, you'll see those hierarchies start to form naturally. And with autistic people, they're just kind of, they either don't form at all or they're all over the place. They're always changing and switching, which makes them insignificant. We're problem solve. We're solutions focused. We want to use our little spurg brains to come up with some kind of answer to a problem. We love to puzzle solve, problem solve. We're information based. So we're already leaning toward that low context style. We have a very low tolerance for ambiguity. We like things very black and white, very clear, fuzziness, fuzzy concepts, fuzzy boundaries, fuzzy rules. If things are too fuzzy, I can't even be in that environment. That's one reason I don't go in a lot of panels because their expectations and rules are so fuzzy. I can't figure them out, and it hurts my brain to try to be there and figure out what's expected of me on this panel. And boundaries, we're very good about stating our boundaries or setting our standards. This is how avoidant cultures see all of that stuff I just named, how it reads to them when it reflects into an avoidant culture. Directness is aggression. You're picking a fight, you're starting something. Literal is you're being difficult. There's a larger understanding that's being communicated that doesn't rely on the literal understanding of every detail. But for autistic people, it does. We don't have that. It does rely on our literal understanding of every detail. And if you can't give us that, it's going to cause communication tension because we're trying to get that from you. Um, honesty is experiences rudeness or harsh. You're telling the truth, but you're doing it too harshly, and you become the problem, not with the you're telling the person the truth about. We're solutions focused. That's read as cold. We're cold and detached. We're not picking up on the human element. We're not being empathetic. We're not being sympathetic. We're being coldly analytical. Never mind that people get paid six figures by corporations because they need people who are able to come in and coldly analyze things. So it's a valuable skill set that's being stigmatized in these cultures as a liability. And ordinary boundaries, just saying, this is not acceptable to me, or I don't let this into my life, or this is not the standard I operate on. Just saying that, confrontational. You are confronting and causing conflict. It's not that people like me are doing anything wrong. I'm speaking adult to adult. That's the communication style I'm using. And these conflict avoidant, emotionally protective cultures run child to child because of that lack of experience with fully feeling and learning what to do with it. Emotional intelligence. You develop a certain amount of intelligence with emotion specifically as you're able to feel them fully and practice them, and then you get to learn what to do each time. Oh yeah, okay, I remember this emotion. I felt it in its full glory, its full bloom, like 2 weeks ago. And so now I can do this next step. If you don't get to fully feel the emotion because parents or teachers or authority figures are shaming you or making you feel bad or guilty when it just even starts, and then you have to shut it down, you have to pinch it off, you're not going to get to that adult level of knowing what to do with your emotions. And so people that come from cultures that don't allow that development or that try to hinder it or become a barrier to it, everyone from that culture learns to operate on that one level, and they when they all get together, they know how to keep each other on that one level. But it's not an adult level. It's an underdeveloped level that everybody just happens to be at together. And here's an important thing to highlight, that this avoidant culture, it doesn't have a way to accommodate autistic communication. That's not part of it. And so it tends to pathologize it, along with the same communication styles from these other cultures. Not because we're wrong, but because our clarity, we bring a light of truth, that Virgo analysis, that Gemini thing that Angelina and I talked about. And for people that are trying to protect, they don't want that truth can expose all the fuzziness that they rely on. They rely on ambiguity. And when we try to come up in clear ambiguity, they have to flip their cards over and show their games. Because the game is protecting emotion. Now, here's a flip side of it, which was new to me. And because I'm strength based, this is kind of what I want to build on. They say that autistic people in these environments can actually thrive if they learn how to do it right. They can be a huge asset if people are looking for the skill they bring. We can bring clarity to fog because these cultures tend to run on fog. They're interested in clearing things up just enough for people to feel okay again, and then they're done. If they clear up too much more, that's going to increase the disruption again. We stabilize chaos. We're able to make expectations very explicit so that everybody can have a page to get on. We set a standard. We tend to reduce drama. Y'all seen this from my channel. Like if you compare, that's why this channel is called Drama Light and the Drama Oasis. Because compared to the other channels, everybody knows they can come here and get just enough drama to keep their addiction going, but not nearly the kind that's on all the other channels. So the drama reduction to me should be undeniable. We bring actual accountability, and I'm not even an accountability person. I just try to bring reality. And I expect people to cooperate with that reality, because how do you have a society if there's not some shared reality of some sort? You need like at least a piece of it. Our honesty, that autistic honesty, and I keep telling people this all the time, it builds actual trust. I mean the stuff I say here. If I've built trust with you, it wasn't like a YouTube game or a panel game or anything like that. So your Spurgs, you can kind of take us at face value. We're not that sophisticated. We're pretty guileless when it comes to things like loyalty and trust and friendship. And I've said all over and over, my tendency is to trust until I have a reason not to. So each new person that shows up, I tend to just show a lot of blind trust to, and then I'll pull it back as needed instead of gradually building more of it. And consistency, we bring a consistency that can reassure people. People like these emotionally avoidant cultures, they like consistency. They like a nice baseline that they can just expect. And we can provide that form of consistency. So there's room for collaboration if we can find a way to match our strengths to these cultures. In fact, it says avoidance systems need people like us. They just don't know how to handle you until they see the benefits. I guess maybe that's what I'm trying to show here, that despite all my flaws or perceived flaws or imagined flaws, and there are actual flaws there, that I still bring more benefit than liability. All right, we're going to get into the tools real quick, and then I'm going to drop the link, and we'll open up the panel. Let me see if there's any comments. Oh, hey, Daisy. Well, like I said, even if I'm talking to just you, it's an honor to be doing so, and it's captured on stream so other people can go back and get the information if they need to. Really? Maybe comparatively, relatively, but if I had to grade my own self, there's areas for improvement. There's a little bit of toxicity that seeps in now and then, but I am definitely trying to keep this a healthy space. I think we need one. I call this the shack in the back. We have the big top in the front, the 3-ring circus that everybody comes for. And then when they need a break for that, it's like the wrestling ring. And when they need a break from that, they come to the shack in the back. And they get patched up. They can chill out. They can shake off the drama for a while, the circus. So I think there's a way to like collaborate with that instead of fight it. I think I have a role to play in the circus. It's just not in the actual circus. But I think I can still be of service to the circus. So I'm very much trying to have my channel play that role. All right. So these are the things that we can do as autistic people to continue to be our natural self, because that's one of my complaints with these cultures is if being my natural self makes me dangerous, makes me a threat, and also you see this same like framing used with feminism and men. Men are supposed to not fully be themselves as men because it upsets everybody else around them. It's toxic masculinity, so they have to modify or hold back to fit in with all of these non-male cultures. And I say bullshit. If everyone else gets to be themselves, men should be able to be themselves too. If we're too male for people, then don't be around us. And I feel the same way about autism. We should be able to fully be ourselves. That is the most mentally healthy thing that people can do. We should have learned that with gay rights, that not being in the, like, closets are bad, and being able to not be in a closet and be who you really are is healthy, both individually and societally. I think autistic people should spurg, stim, be weird, whatever. That is their that is their normal. And if you can't be your normal, everybody else gets to. So if you can't, there's something wrong that needs to be fixed with that group. And that's health. Being yourself is healthy. Unless you're like really messed up and then go talk. So these are things we can do to continue to be ourselves in these environments. And it says we don't have to change anything we say. We just have to change the framing. Not even how we say it. And I learned this myself when I went from drawing a boundary to setting a standard. I don't see it as drawing a boundary anymore, because that does seem like very final, very rigid. You're putting up a steel wall and you're planting a flag, and I'm not moving from this point. And setting a standard is more like, this is what's important to me. This is what I want in my life. This is what I don't want in my life. Um, I'm relying on you or asking you to help me maintain that standard. It's way more collaborative than like an iron wall. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm just reframing how I'm doing it, but I'm holding a certain value. I just don't have to build a wall to do it. I can reframe it as a standard, and then get buy-in and cooperation, and the whole community itself can help keep it up. And I think that's definitely growth, and it's superior to an iron wall. So it suggests little phrases like, um, just to avoid any misunderstandings, or just so things don't get misunderstood, or here's the simplest way to do ABC, or here's the simplest way to say what I'm trying to say, or I'm not criticizing, I'm just clarifying, I'm not here to judge, I'm just trying to understand, etc. So like the idea is to lower the emotional threat level. So if people are seeing you as a threat, you can use little phrases to communicate that, I know I might look like a threat, but really, guys, that's not what I'm about. That's not what I'm here for. Cut me some slack. You can turn off your alarms just a little bit. We can get through this, etc. Number two, communicate. Just use that honesty and just get it out in the open about what you're about. One thing it makes the point is that avoidant cultures tend to assume motives, which we all kind of do in a way. That's part of theory of mind. So just put your motive up front so they don't have to sit there and guess. Like, I'm not upset, I'm just trying to understand. Or I'm not being confrontational, I'm just asking questions so I can understand. Just state your motive so that it clears up that ambiguity. Or I'm setting this standard so that we can all have a constructive conversation together. Or I'm being direct because I don't want to be misunderstood. I want people to clearly understand what I'm saying. Those kind of again, it's phrases, it's communication, it's verbal. It says this prevents 80% of misreadings from this culture. Tool number 3, establish predictability. Remember, this culture likes that consistency. It likes that baseline. And a lot of autistic people like that predictability too in a different way. So maybe this is you guys tell me if you would benefit from this, because my mind doesn't work this way. But it is suggesting regular check-ins, which I kind of do every stream. I try to think of what I need to check in about. But if we need to do some kind of regular formal check-in, work-in throughout the day somewhere, because the morning coffee things are intended to be kind of a check-in. The community campfires in the evenings are another check-in, like how did your day go? But we can build in specific check-in points or check-in rituals if it's going to be helpful. Um, Writing things down, if we all agree to something or if there's a certain value, because I'm trying to build a network here, a quality network. I'm trying to offer something to the world, to the market, to society. And the better quality I can offer, the better value it's going to have. And one of the ways I try to offer that quality is if when people become part of the network, join the network, there's a certain expectation of what they're getting. Things like the people in the network are able to have constructive conversations when there's conflict. People in the network are able to sit with strong emotion and talk through it, etc. So that's why I'm setting these standards, because eventually I want the network to be people that can operate from these standards as a baseline, because that's the expectation that people coming into the network are going to have. That's what creates and defines the quality. So I'm doing that with standards. Eventually, and I don't even know that it's going to take a lot of standards. We've kind of already talked about most of them. But eventually, when enough people are operating at remember we're doing the 2.0, we're upgrading everything. When enough people are operating at the upgrades, then we'll have enough of a network to say this is the standard for this network. This is the quality you could expect from this network. And if you come into this network, this is how you can expect people to operate and the values they operate from. So maybe writing that down when we formally set a standard for the community, communicating that in writing. And then everybody that could be kind of like not even so much an unspoken expectation anymore, but look, if you're part of this community, maybe we could do a little set of written standards, maybe 3 or 4 or 5, and do a little tiny blurb, and people could add their name to it somehow. And then if you co-sign on this agreement, then you're saying that if you're going to be part of this community, you're going to help to uphold this set of standards, A, B, C, D, E. And so people can rely on and start to know the people that they can count on to do that. I think that would be good. And it's not a enforcement mechanism. It's not a look, you said you were going to do this and you're not doing it. It's not it's not to police each other. It's just kind of, yeah, I believe in this. I want to support this. I'm going to do my part. It may not be perfect all the time, but I'm going to do my part to help establish these standards for this community so that we can have this network. Just something like that. So maybe that I can get the AI to write me up a little something, and we can put our names on it, whoever wants to. It doesn't obligate you. It's not a contract. It's just kind of a way of publicly saying, yeah, I'm down with these standards. You can count on me to help out. And it's also recommending a predictable communication style, which I have no idea what that is. Predictability builds trust without needing emotional closeness. So let me ask it. Um, what would a predictable communication style even be for autistic people? All right, we'll see what it says. All right, a few more tools. Use data when you can. Um, it takes it from the personal to kind of the impersonal. You can do things like you can speak in impersonal terms, like this is where the process broke down for me, or this is the outcome that usually happens in systems with this dynamic. So it makes it not like this is not personal. I used to say that all the time when I first moved up here with the ex and then with the workplaces I was in afterwards. Every time there was a conflict, I would say like, well, I can't figure out what's going. It must be cultural. Well, I guess it's cultural. Well, maybe it's cultural. I would throw that out as an explanation every time because there were so many people acting one way and I was getting into the same conflicts and I wasn't aware of doing anything wrong. So it seemed like it wasn't personal. It wasn't somebody behaving badly or trying to act a certain way. That whatever culture does to people, how it shapes them, we were just shaped differently when it comes to these issues. And I was just trying to problem solve, but it definitely seemed to me, even at work, when I started to step back and analyze it, yeah, there were specific interpersonal issues and specific people doing specific, but the overall pattern of it was very much cultural. I couldn't localize it to any one person. So try to be objective and using data and facts when you can. Now, here's another tool about boundaries or maybe setting standards. And it's probably one I could remember, so remind me. Apparently, boundaries are scary to avoidant people if they appear suddenly. That really freaks them out. So it's saying that if you're going to set boundaries, do it ahead of time so it's not a surprise boundary. So, like, prepare for the future. Like, in the future, if things escalate, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to step away. I'm going to pause. I'm going to remove myself from the situation. Like, prepare them for the boundary. Or, um, I need a lot of open, direct conversation because I'm looking for clarity. So if I don't get that, here's what I'm going to do if the conversation suddenly stops producing that. Or if I need to understand something, I'll directly ask a question. It's not me being confrontational, it's the way I understand things. And then if it's taken as conflict, I'll pull back and we can try the conversation another day. So if you set things up ahead of time, it takes away some of that unpredictability and they're not as caught by surprise in the moment. But it recommends not trying to set a really firm boundary in the heat of conflict with avoidant cultures. All right, and then here's the final closing message. It says the problem is not you, which is what I kept saying from the moment I set foot in this crazy state because the whole time I came here in good faith. I was not trying, I didn't have an agenda. I wasn't trying to cause trouble, and I kept being the problem every single word, like every direction I turned. I was a problem somehow. You are not the, it's not you. And I kept saying that to myself. I'm like, well, you're not doing anything wrong. It's, don't internalize this. Don't buy into their framing because I was very clear about what I was trying to do in my purposes, and they were benign. You are not too much. You are not the problem, and you are not misreading the room. What you're seeing about this emotional avoidance shit and the drama triangle, that's all happening. Don't let them gaslight you. You are reading it with clinical accuracy. They are misreading you. That is what is happening. They are taking your attempt to communicate truth or problem solve as conflict, as a threat, as aggression. You are the one being misread. Don't let that role get reversed. Avoidant cultures hide from tension, and autistic people tend to just walk straight into it because we don't even see it half the time. We are the ones who drag truth to the surface so that the system can grow. If you don't want our truth, stay away from us. Don't include us in your communities. But don't pretend to include us and then eject us when the truth starts to come out. Especially people that pretend that that's what they're trying to set a context for themselves. It's no wonder we get scapegoated, and it's also no wonder we end up being the backbone of whatever actually works. Yeah, that's an important thing to remember. Spurgs have built the modern world that you are living, working, and playing in right now. This is our world. We built this shit. So work with us. I am here to build. Y'all know my dream is to build a functioning, healthy society. So I'm not here to do anything but that. So don't take me in any other spirit than that. All right, I'm gonna drop the link. Yeah, as long as there's the only qualifications I would put on that is not at the expense of like everybody around you. If it's gonna hurt or damage society, like there's some kind of responsibility. You can't just recklessly be yourself. But if you fully be yourself, I think it's very mentally healthy to fully allow yourself to breathe and come out and not have to repress or mask or hide or hold back. The more you can do that without damaging people around you, I think that's the optimal health that you're looking for. The problem becomes when you're fully being yourself, but everybody around you starts getting hurt. How do you resolve that? You may be in the wrong environment. It may be you. There may be something about yourself you need to look out for. Um, so that kind of stuff. But you want to at least stay in the window of mostly being able to be yourself. And if you're in places where you feel like you can't, you're probably in the wrong place long term. So be very clear on the short term goal while you're there, and don't lose sight of that and get what you need. But long term, it's probably not going to be the community or the solution for you. And I've gotten really good at niche building. And the way I niche build is I move in and out of a ton of groups since 2020 when lockdown started. I've probably been in 50 communities and groups by now through YouTube, like different Discords, YouTube communities, Twitter groups, all that stuff. And I move in and out, and when they start to get dysfunctional or they start to show some of these traits, or I start to become, I just go find the place where I can continue to be myself and do what I came to that group to do. If I have to push too hard, I don't want to be part of any group that doesn't want me in it. I'm not trying to be the problem child. I'm not trying to fight people to stay in community. I'm not trying to fight people to get positive things accomplished. So if any of that stuff's happening, I tend to just go find groups where I can do that. And that comes from growing up where I had dysfunction around me and I had healthy little places around me too. And I learned to like just when things got dysfunctional, go find the healthy places. And I developed a very acute sense of health and dysfunction. So if you can't be yourself, just go find the places where you can. You know when you're in a place where you can be yourself. And have that be reciprocated and reflected back with understanding. And people get you. When you talk, you don't sound weird. They respond back with things that make sense and further the conversation, etc. So I use that little inner compass, that little inner signal. Am I able to be myself fully here or not? How, to what degree? And if it's too much of a degree, then I need to go find another place. And what's setting the standard for being myself now is YouTube. Because I am able to be more myself here than anywhere else. So now I have a standard, I have a reference I can take to any group I go to. Can I be with this group like I am on YouTube? Yes, no. What percent? Can I work with that percent, or is it too restrictive? All right, I'm going to drop the link. Here we go. And like I said, I'm blind. I don't know who's out there. There may be nobody. We'll see what happens. And then tonight, I'm going to do the conversation stream, probably a short little conversation stream this evening. And then Don't Judge Me is having the judges stream tonight at 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific. I'll drop her channel. I'll be at that hour. They're going to be answering questions about the contest. They're going to be making announcements. There may be surprise visitors. We don't know, but it sounds like it's going to be a fun, possibly chaotic, dramatic, exciting time for everybody. It'll be a mix of circus, collaboration, and personal growth and community growth. What are they calling it? A collaboration. All right, there's the link. And here is her channel. Oh, wow, this one went almost an hour of just me monologuing. I'll go to the hour mark, and then if nobody comes up, I will wrap up this one. And then we can do the campfire later tonight. We can reflect on the week. I think it's been a good week. As far as I know, no major fighting. I haven't heard a lot of drama. I haven't had conflict with people. People are working on their projects more or less. Wiz, if you're out there, dude, we only have a few more days to get something done. Hit me on Discord, Gen X Jeff, or you can email me through my website, sadersgrove.com. The link is in the description. We've had some great conversations. I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing. I think panel 2.0 is happening, Panelverse 2.0, and it's fits and starts. There's some reversion to 1.0 in spots, but that's going to happen. It's not going to be a perfect transition. But as long as it's moving in the direction of 2.0, that will be okay. And remember, it's a force bigger than any of us anyway. So all I can do is nudge it that way. So that's what the day looks like, and then we'll have our weekend and go from there. Thank all of you for being here. Sophia, thank you very much. This is the membership tier. This is where I put all the really nerdy deep dive stuff, and it's growing. It's slowly growing, so these are much smaller streams. They're much more intimate. But eventually, my hope is to have this be the core of the personal growth part of this channel. The workshop. The laboratory. The forge. Well, maybe we can end on some art. I'll see if Moose or Frank has anything new. I think Frank did send me some stuff. Oh, you know what? I better save it for the campfire. I don't think it's fair to put it on these member streams. Although I could tease it. Maybe I'll do that. Oh, wait. Yeah, I'm going to tease it here. This is what we're in for tonight. Don't tell anybody. This is maybe one of the coolest ones yet. Here's a little dose of Frank.
Braunes Huhn, braune Kuh, Side for side,
Oh,
side for side.
this is perfect for a Friday night.
Side for side, side for side.
Is it German?
Braune Kuh.
Brun Kuh. All right, that's what's coming tonight, folks. And I'm sure Moose is working hard on something. He's always dropping new stuff. Let's check frequency. Forge, that is. Forge. Oh, wait, that's not. That's a different channel. Hang on. Man, there's. Why am I coming up with all these Frequency Forge channels? All right, let's see. Anything. His are kind of hit or miss. Not all of them are channel friendly. Let's check this little sharp, maybe. I'll save this for tonight. This will be way more appropriate for Friday night and not the Forge. Okay, well, I'm just winding down the clock at this point. If there's no questions, comments, people have a problem or an issue they want to talk about or look at, problem solve. Hopefully this helps. I know it helps me. This little guide, it's kind of what I've been intuitively doing anyway. I've just been hitting a lot of friction because of it. And maybe having this all in one place, we can cut down some of that friction. And every time this happens, both at work, on YouTube, just with people up here culturally, every single time, my mind goes to trust. Like, it seems like it's something about trust because they think I'm doing something more negative than I'm actually there to do. And does that mean they don't trust? Like, they don't trust that I'm there to do good. They're suspicious. They are able to believe that I'm there for purposes that are not aligned with what I say I'm there for. That's the little like bell that sets off in my brain when I encounter this. Because if I feel like if there was trust, and I always think more trust is built than probably actually is, they wouldn't see me this way. I wouldn't be a threat. But maybe it's not. Maybe with these cultural dynamics, trust doesn't. It's not a trust thing. Anything that sets up the dynamic immediately becomes a threat. It doesn't matter. It's not a reflection of your trust. It's a reflection of you're the person that happened to step on the switch, the trigger, the button. And with autistic people, we often are that person because we don't even see that. We don't even see them. We don't even look for them, and we don't even know what they look like. Because it's not verbal. All right. Oh, got another minute. I do like that idea of doing a little set of agreements that people could voluntarily undersign. And we need a name for them, like community people that help uphold a community, like guardians or something like that. Boosters, community people I'm looking for it's people in a community that you can go to as a representative of that community. If you need information, if you need to have a certain type of conversation, oh, that person's on the outliers list. I know I can count on them to talk to me about this and this. I have one of those healing conversations, etc. Whatever you would call those people you can go to that represent a certain set of community values. All right. That's it. We're done. I will see everybody tonight at our little campfire this evening. And don't judge me's judges panel. Can't wait for that. Take care, everybody. It was great hanging out. And see you around the fire.